Okay, this is 101, week 13, part 3. So we're on paragraph 3, talking about this white lady who's being a Becky. And it continues, she says, paragraph 3 is, oh, the Beckery. She didn't like my simple expression of joy at seeing Black Panther, at the dark-skinned love interest, at a black teenage genius who leaves Tony Stark in the dust. Tony Stark is Iron Man, and he's like a super genius. I'm gonna have to summarize a lot of these movies. Let me finish this paragraph. Oh, the Beckery. She didn't like my simple expression of joy at seeing Black Panther, at a dark-skinned love interest, at a black teenage genius who leaves Tony Stark in the dust, at a wise, regal, dreadlocked queen, at seeing a multitude of black excellence represented for the first time. So these are points from the movie. She mentions a dark-skinned love interest because sometimes, and I mentioned earlier that movies are designed to make huge sums of money, and so they have to appeal to everybody. Even if you have a movie with black people in it, it'll often be the story of a black person who falls in love with a white person. Why? Well, because again, in an effort to try to make as much money as humanly possible, you want to have, if you have a couple that's a black person and a white person, then you can get black people to see the movie and white people to see the movie. That's what the studio executives who are in charge of these movies think. The result of that is sometimes it's that movies that are about two black people falling in love don't get as much money because they're like, well, if it's two black people falling in love, only black people will see it. But if it's a black person falling in love with a white person, then we can get everybody to go see it, and we'll give this movie more money. And the result is it tends to privilege a white love interest at some point. So that's the reason she mentions that. She also mentions a black teenage genius who leaves Tony Stark in the dust. Tony Stark is Iron Man, a white guy. And in the movie, they have a black teenage girl who is smarter than Tony Stark, and she's awesome. She's quite cool, actually. I really liked her in the movie. She's actually probably my favorite part of the movie. I like the villain, but she's very cool. So she mentions it's cool to see a black teenager be smarter than the smartest guy in the Marvel Universe, or one of the smartest guys. At a wise, regal, dreadlocked queen. To have a black queen who is fantastic and cool, and she is quite cool in the movie. At seeing a multitude of black excellence represented for the first time. So this lady, Becky, who I assume, because she calls her Becky, is a white lady. The Roderick says, hey, I love this Black Panther movie, and here comes a white lady to be like, oh, I guess you forgot about The Matrix and Blade. Because she's like, taking away from Roderick's fun. And like, why? Why is she doing it? Like, why did she even bother to get on there and take away from people's fun? Okay, so paragraph 4. No. According to her, I should have paid homage, meaning kind of like worship. No, according to her, this is the Becky. According to her, I should have paid homage to The Matrix and Blade, two films that formed some prior pantheon of mostly black Afrofuturistic cinema that, in her mind, displayed black excellence on par with Black Panther. Spoiler, they are not even close. To her, my comment was an insult to those movies. Isn't that an interesting sort of psychology there? That Roderick gets on the internet and says Black Panther is awesome. And this white lady is like, she's insulting Blade and she's insulting The Matrix. And The Matrix has like one or two black people in it. And like, there's some black people in it, not a ton. And Blade has a black main character, although certainly a lot of the other characters in Blade are white. So she says, listen, and so she says, why does this lady even feel like talking about this? Like, why is this Becky lady getting on there and complaining she didn't mention The Matrix and Blade, and so she should get in trouble on the internet? That's ridiculous. All right, cool. To her, my comment was an insult to those movies. I responded bewildered. I'm just very confused. Paragraph 5 now. The Matrix? You mean the one starring a white dude and his white love interest and white main villains? Sure, it's got some POC, that's people of color. But seriously, you don't see the qualitative and quantitative difference between that and Black Panther? Meaning like quantitative, meaning there's more black people in Black Panther than in The Matrix, and qualitative, meaning the black people in Black Panther are better. They're like main characters that are more interesting rather than being, smaller roles. But seriously, you don't see the qualitative and the qualitative and quantitative difference between that and Black Panther? I added a screenshot of the top billed actors: Chadwick Boseman, Lupita Nyong'o, and Denai Gurria's dark brown beauty, standing in stark contrast to Wesley Snipes and a bunch of people whose skin look nothing like that of Wesley Snipes. So the point is she shows the Black Panther poster next to the Blade poster. And it's true that both Black Panther and Blade do have a black lead. The lead actor is black. But in Black Panther, the black lead is surrounded by lots of other black people. But in Blade, the black lead has a bunch of white people around him. And she's saying that's a big difference. Like, that's not, you know, her whole point of the post was it's amazing to see a movie with so many black people as main characters, not just like one or two. And so she shows the poster as a way of kind of communicating with this Becky lady who is complaining. Paragraph 6. She couldn't let it go. Quote, I see it as the progress, the little steps toward making a movie like Black Panther. Sick. You sick. Gotta start somewhere. And those movies definitely paved the way. The little SIC in brackets is something you are probably not familiar with. It's an unusual thing. They're sick in brackets means, all right. When you quote something, you're supposed to use you don't know this from, I taught you guys how to quote. You're supposed to use the exact words that the person used. But what if the person you're quoting is an idiot and made mistakes? The word sick in brackets like that is letting the reader know that those mistakes were in the original quote. It's not like you, the person doing the quoting, fucked up the quote. Right, because if she's quoting her, see how Black Panther is in lowercase and titles are supposed to be in uppercase in paragraph 6? If she doesn't write sick, you might think Roderick is the one who forgot to capitalize Black Panther. She put sick there to let you know it's this Becky who forgot to capitalize Black Panther. And also didn't capitalize the U at the beginning of the sentence. Okay. So, but this woman just like won't let it go. She's just like still complaining. And remember, the whole point of this was like, hey, I had a great time at the movies, and here comes this person who hasn't spoken to Roderick in 20 years to like complain. Complain, but why are you complaining about this? I just had a good time at the movies. All right. Paragraph 7. Utterly confused, I asked her if she had even read my post. I had been celebrating Black Panther's landmark achievement. It was the first time I saw an almost entirely black cast portraying excellence, I said. And this was not talking about the past or other movies, but my own personal experience with this movie and how it had never happened before for me. Like, it's just telling your own story, like not making a universal claim about cinema. I pointed out to her that her comment literally meant, quote, I guess nobody remembers these movies that are not the same as this at all. And that what she could have said is, yeah, it's great to see black people represented in such a powerful way, with some comment about how steps were made in previous movies, if she really wanted to give Blade and The Matrix what she thought was their due. Instead, she came riding into my comments trying to diminish my black joy. So, you know, she points out that, like, this lady could have said she could have mentioned Blade and The Matrix while still being basically positive. But the way she did it was to sort of set it up as like a complaint. Like, oh, you didn't mention these other movies, you're bad. When you could have just been like, hey, that's a good point. Also, these other movies were cool. But she doesn't say it like that. She says like, oh, I guess nobody remembers these movies. Like, it's a complaint. And the question is, why is she complaining about this? Now, by the way, if you've read this far, this may seem like a minor thing. Like, why are we reading a whole, Fromm is obviously an important piece of psychology, kind of talking about obedience and disobedience. This is, like, different. Because it's just a person, the first 7 paragraphs is just a person complaining about something that happened to them on Facebook. But she's about to talk about, in the next section, the larger significance here, which is, why is it when black people are happy, other people have to come in and ruin it for absolutely no reason? Like, because the question that the article raises is, a black person saying they're enjoying other black people, and this lady who hasn't commented on anything in like 20 years shows up to be like, ooh, you're a bad person. You made a mistake. Like, why? And that is a larger issue that is worth talking about, and we'll talk about that in the next video.